Chris Weber here again with Weber Reviews, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the Tudor North Flag. But before I do, obligatory wristwatch check. That's the thing we do, right? It is a Saturday, and I'm wearing the watch I almost always wear on weekends, which is my Seiko Alpinist. I love this watch. A lot has been said about it. Of course, many videos, a lot in the forums. People really love this watch. I'm not unique for loving it, but geez, when I put it on this morning, I just remember every weekend just how amazing it really is. I'll be doing a detailed review of this watch as well in an upcoming video, so like, subscribe, stay tuned. You can see this one coming out. But today, we're going to be talking about that Tudor North Flag, the watch I usually wear during the week, not on the weekends, when I'm going into the office or going about my regular life. With a 70-hour power reserve, it's going to make it through the weekend and still be on time when I go to work on Monday. Now I know it's not the end of the world to reset our watches. In fact, it's kind of part of the fun of having mechanical watches. But it is nice on this watch to know if I need to give it a few winds or if it's going to be fine and waiting for me Monday morning. I guess that gets us into talking about the movement. Of course, as you know, it is the MT5621 manufacturer caliber from Tudor, the first in-house made movement from Tudor put in a watch, which is why I believe they put the first exhibition case back on this watch. It's a beautiful movement. A lot of folks are kind of down on the movement. They say, oh, it looks like something you'd see in a Seiko, entry-level Seiko or something, right? You know, they're trying to downplay it like, oh, the finishing isn't very good. In a sense, I guess they're right. This isn't haute horology, and it doesn't look to me like the movement was designed specifically to be good to look at. What I think it was designed to do is be very robust and have that long power reserve and have all of the modern anti-magnetic properties, shock-resistant properties that you'd expect in a watch of this caliber. And upon closer inspection, everything you can see is finished nicely. There's no burrs, there's no hard edges, and in fact, the bulk of the movement that you can see actually appears to have been either shot peened or laser finished to give it a matte look. It's not left unfinished at all. Everything's finished. It's just not decorated. This isn't something that's meant to be super fancy. It's something that's meant to be a workhorse. So getting away from that movement, for some people it's a little polarizing to see that power reserve on the front of the watch. I myself really like it. I think it offsets the date really nicely as well. When you're looking at the face of the watch, the power reserve's on one side, the little white indicator, the date's on the other with its white window. It's a great looking watch, it's a great looking dial, and again, it's purpose built. Everything on the watch is not for decoration. Of course, everything's aesthetic. Its aesthetic is to be a tool watch. And that is to say that almost every surface is brushed, not polished. Not a lot of jewelry going on here. The only polished surfaces are the very top edge of the bezel at the top of the dial and the very bottom of the case as it goes along the side. Has a high polish there, very sharp edges, and just a little bit of polish to catch the light to let you know someone cares. The other part that's polished is the in-between of the H-links. The small links in the center have the edges polished on a chamfer. Looks really, really nice. Again, catches the light, but I would suggest, typically, as you're looking at it, you don't really notice that polish. It's just a light reflector that kind of makes things look nice. You don't see any mirrored effect. It's such a small surface that's finished there. The edges of the bracelet, the edges of the case are sharp, really, really well done, really well made. Not sharp that it hurts when you're wearing the bracelet. In fact, it's extremely comfortable, but not rounded over, not eased in any way. The other part that's polished here is the clasp, which is one of my favorite parts of the watch. Interestingly, this bracelet is fantastic. The clasp has some polish in the Tudor shield logo that's on the back. Then there's another shield beneath that that's polished, and when you open it all the way up, the inside of the clasp is polished. When you close it, the other polished piece is on the side of the clasp, which I actually think is my one complaint about this watch. Actually, I have two. I'll get to the other one in a second. I think that's because this deploying clasp is actually not meant for this watch. It's meant for a bunch of Tudors, and so they polished it and they brushed it. Hopefully it goes well with whatever they put on, whether it's a high polish watch or a brushed watch. I think I see that they saved some money there, but I saved some money there too. It's not breaking my heart, it's below my wrist, I almost never notice the high polish on the side, which is in stark contrast to the rest of the watch. Not that big of a deal. The clasp in operation, though, it has ceramic ball bearings that I can actually push in with my fingernail on springs, both on the inside and the outside, so that when you close it, it's very low effort, but it's very, very positive. It stays shut. This isn't just, pressed metal or stamped that's actually... Sorry, I got distracted by something out the window. It seems like it's going to last the lifetime of the watch, maybe outlast me. The bracelet's really comfortable, the clasp works great, enough said. Looking at the overall case, right, that fairly Genta-esque design with the integrated lugs, another polarizing feature. We talked about the power reserve a little bit being polarizing. I think it's great. Now another one, you can't swap straps easily. That's okay with me. I think this watch looks so much better on the bracelet, I don't think I'm really interested in changing it for something else. I think the bracelet design is integral to the case design. It certainly doesn't detract from the aesthetic of the watch at all, or the usability. I think it's just a watch on a bracelet. Nothing wrong with that. The case design is a love it or hate it, right? It's that very sort of 1970s feel. The Royal Oak, the Nautilus. It also harkens back to some of Tudor's own designs from back in the past, and also some of Rolex's designs. The Oysterquartz, for example, comes to mind. Had a very similar case design. It's not without precedent in the Tudor line to have something that looks like this. In fact, call upon their own history and heritage a lot with this watch, while also, sorry for the motorcycle noise, looking to the future, again with that in-house movement, with that exhibition case back. When we get into the dial, it certainly is something that at first glance, and on the internet perhaps when you're looking at photographs, it's going to be hard to see the level of depth that is actually afforded by this dial. So when you start at the crystal and move in, the first thing that you have coming up is the chapter ring along the outside. That chapter ring gets us to the third polarizing feature of this watch, the use of yellow. So the 5-minute ticks are indeed yellow, and in between they're white. Now, in normal use, about this far away from my face, maybe I'm just getting old, I can't really tell that those are yellow and the rest are white. It's not a screaming school bus yellow. It's really not an offensive or bright or loud or flashy or showy yellow. It's a really nice pop of color that I think adds a lot to the dial. So now, moving down onto my wrist, taking a look, the three-dimensionality of the dial is really stellar. It goes from that chapter ring to the top of the indices, then the indices sort of have an edge to them, and inside that edge is where the lume is applied. So that dips down a little bit, right? It's dished out, so they're two levels of their own. And they're applied, so you get nice shadows cast from the Arabics and the indices. Then you get to the face of the dial, and then you get below that to that date window. And the date window is no ordinary date window. It's not just a square carved into the watch. It's actually beveled, it's mitered. It looks like a beautiful picture frame coming down to that date window. Really, really nice. I love the center stack. Just so nice. The center of each of the hands has a circular center. And the seconds hand is small, the minutes hand is bigger, the hour hand is the biggest still. And from the side looking at it, it's just really, really lovely. You can see that sort of birthday cake effect, right, as it goes up. Maybe wedding cake? Some kind of cake? I love cake. Anyway, really, really nice. Then the hands themselves, when they overlap, they do so with precision and also with intent. So there's no question in my mind that the minutes hand was meant to just kiss the base of the hashes on the chapter ring. The seconds hand extends over the top of that and gets onto those hashes. Then the base of that trapezoidal pip of lume on the seconds hand, that actually just kisses the outer edge of the hour hand, the tip of that triangle, as it comes around. Again, can't be by accident, right? Well designed. It also just kisses the base of the date window. Again, all thought out, all thought through. Very crisp, very clear. The dial itself, highly symmetrical from top to bottom. Tudor at the top, their logo, the Shield logo. Chronometer, officially certified, of course, because this is a COSC chronometer certified movement. And then Swiss made flanking either side of the 6. Again, I think the symmetry on this watch is incredible. Some people say the power reserve throws it off. I don't agree. They need to hold the watch, they need to look at it, they need to see it, and they see that in fact it is extremely symmetrical. Something much more symmetrical than all the popular chronographs based off of 7750, for example, with all of the subdials off to one side. I have a couple of those. I think they look great, don't get me wrong, but no complaining about things that aren't problems, people. No. All right, so the hands, the dial, absolutely beautiful. One detail I haven't heard mentioned before that I can't help but see is that this ceramic matte bezel on the outside, which is a cool feature on its own when you're looking at the watch, definitely helps it stand out. And when you're looking face on, just gives a nice little halo to the brushed bezel on the top. That ceramic black bezel is matte finished, just like the chapter ring, just like the dial face. In fact, when you look across the watch, you could be forgiven for imagining that there was just one wafer of ceramic placed on top of the case and then milled out to cover the rest of this. Now, I know that's not how they made it. I know it's not just milled out, but man, does it look like it could be. And I think that's really cool. When you look across, it's like it's one continuous piece of matte black ceramic that goes through the entire dial, the bezel, the chapter ring, and that everything else is sort of assembled around that or under that. Really, really cool feature under that sapphire crystal that I think needs to be called out. Whoever designed it at Tudor, nice work. The other subtle detail that I'll mention looking face on that you don't really notice all the time until you get really close up is that the bezel that goes around, that stainless bezel, is actually brushed in a circular pattern, not a radial pattern coming out from the center, but actually circular, just like, a hula hoop goes around and around. Now the case itself is brushed vertically, so there is a little subtle detailing there, which I think is really nice. Now, the other thing I haven't mentioned is sort of the operation of the watch. The screw-down crown is extremely easy to unscrew. It's spring-loaded and pops very quickly out, as you'd expect, but with a lot of energy out to the winding setting. I can wind it easily. You can see as you wind it that power reserve goes up, always really cool. You get a visual indicator when it's time to stop winding. And then getting it to the time setting, very easy. Hackable, of course. Stops right there, makes it nice and easy. Setting the date, also very simple. Oh, that date I forgot to mention. When it gets to midnight, snaps right over. There's no, between 11 and 2 a.m., the thing's slowly making its way. It is an instantaneous date change. It's almost worth staying up to midnight just to watch. Finding the threads to engage, usually, just like this time, usually takes me 2 tries. Pressing against that spring, trying to find the threads to get in. I never feel like I'm cross-threading it. Sometimes I just feel like I miss. Do I have any complaints about the North Flag? Not really complaints. It's hard to imagine that there's anything to complain about on this watch. Certainly, it's well put together. The design is integrated through and through. Doesn't seem like there's any piece, maybe 1 or 2, that aren't coherent with the rest of the design. Those 2 pieces, if you're really nitpicking, are the clasp. The polishing on the side of the clasp doesn't seem like it goes with the rest of the watch. I think that's because the clasp is used across multiple watches, as I mentioned before. The second piece is the crown. It looks to be a titanium crown, which is cool, but there's no titanium on the rest of the watch that I can see, except for perhaps in the movement, that same finish. I'm sure it's not titanium, but that finish, that peened finish is in there. Maybe it's meant to tie the fact that the movement is being operated by the crown, so they sort of share a visual likeness. That would be cool. But there's nothing that I think I can complain about. Did I just complain about it and then say there's nothing to complain about? Nobody likes that. So those are things that I don't feel are as well executed as the rest of the watch. But man, they are subtle. The only other problem I have with the watch, and again it's subtle, is that the way that the integrated bracelet works, and I'll try to show you here without doing too much wrong. So it hangs nicely, right? It's off the watch, but it can extend back upward as well as down. And when it goes up, the H-link, that first H-link, makes contact with the edge of the case. And it will actually start burnishing through the brushing. In fact, you'll be able to see on the macro shot, I have a couple little spots where on the bottom, that H-link has made contact with the case a few times. So it's certainly not a watch that you just want to carelessly throw onto the nightstand when you take it off at night. I mean, maybe you don't really care. I'm getting desk diving marks on the bottom. I intend to wear this watch for a really long time, so who really cares? But if you're trying to keep the finish just the way it came from the factory, you do have to be cognizant of the fact that if you lay it flat, that bracelet can come up, contact the case, mess through some of the brushing, which is why I have this, the little pillow. It always goes on the pillow. It always goes from the pillow into the watch box, so no problem. So that's it, the review of the Tudor North Flag. I really couldn't be happier with this watch. I really, really love it. Every time I put it on, it makes me excited. It makes me proud that I have it. It also, weirdly, if I can say this, makes me proud of the designers of it, because I feel like the subtle detailing, the integration of all the parts, it really says, we thought a lot about this. It doesn't say, hey, there's old watches that people like, let's make another one. It doesn't say, well, people really like a rotating bezel, so let's put a rotating bezel on. Those are fine. There's nothing wrong with liking a watch because of the historical elements, because of what has come before. Certainly I have a bunch of watches in the collection that all pay respect to watches of the past. But this one to me is less about the past and more about the future. Where's Tudor going with the brand? Their first in-house movement, their first power reserve, their first exhibition case back, and a watch design that, while paying a little bit of respect to watches of the past from both Rolex and Tudor, is really, I think, saying, hey, forget about that. We're headed this way. Come with us. I think that's really cool. I hope that history respects this watch as much as I do now. And in the meantime, I'm just going to wear it one way or the other. Thanks so much for watching. I hope this has called out some things that maybe you hadn't seen or hadn't thought about with the Tudor North Flag. Go down, try one on. I think you're really going to like it. If there's something about it that you think might be polarizing, give it a second. The yellow is cool. The power reserve is cool. The integrated bracelet is cool. It's a cool watch. 40mm. It's a great size. Go try one on. See what you think. If you like this video, please comment, like, subscribe. I'm going to be doing a few more watch videos. Give me some ideas. Other watches maybe you want reviewed. Put them in the comments below. I appreciate you watching. Thanks so much for your time. I'm Chris, and have a great one. Oh, I appreciate you watching. Isn't that clever? Probably somebody's already taken that.